Hello, beings of Earth and beyond. Welcome to my channel. I am R the Silent. And today we are going to be talking about the Book of Giants. And this is a biblical text that was taken out of the Bible hundreds of years ago by the big, scary church people, as well as many other texts that were taken out of the Bible as well, including the Book of Enoch, but not limited to just the Book of Enoch and Book of Giants, but a whole bunch of other important things that may have possessed knowledge as to where human beings may have actually come from. So, let's begin. So there are different interpretations of the Book of the Giants. One of them is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of them is in something else that I cannot pronounce. And then there's the old biblical versions of it. So I kind of went through, smashed together everything that I could, took relevant knowledge from each one and researched it, for a little bit. So, I don't really know the time period. And if I told you the time period, that would give away the ending. So, let's just get started, right? So to begin, we'll start with Samael, Lucifer, bearer of light, angel. He was in the story, he's talking to God, and the conversation is a bit longer than this, but he was just talking to God. And I believe they were talking about the servitude of angels to mankind as kind of like a, we need to help them kind of esque conversation. But the way that it was worded in the book stated that Lucifer needed to bow to human beings, and he said no. He said no. Why would I bow to humans? He's also very envious of God at this point of the story. So God cast him and another angel, which I'm having a hard time pronouncing. Azrael? No, at this point, he just cast Lucifer out of heaven. I think Azazel was one of the 200 watchers that were tasked with watching over humanity and helping them progress and guide them towards the right side of progression. So over this period of time, that the 200, there were more than 200 watchers, but over this period of time that the watchers were tasked with watching human beings, they became quite enticed with mortal women, and they quite liked their long hair, which is why some religions require that they wear hair coverings. Anyway, lust was the main reason that the Watchers decided to abandon their post. It was also because of pride and ambition, but mostly because of them lusting after mortal women. So the art of astrology, divination, esoteric knowledge, medicine, writing, lunar cycles, solar cycles, banishing, a lot of the esoteric knowledge that the New Age movement is really into right now was given to these women when these angels fell from heaven and fell from their duties, defying God. These angels decided to commingle and take wives, and when they took these wives, they taught them all of these things. And I have heard from other witches, people who practiced magic, that they were taught specific rituals to help them bear the angelic children, which is something we'll get to in a moment. But when the 200 Watchers descended down Mount Hermon, they took mortal form, which implies that angels are not typically in a mortal form. They're in a very spiritual form. Which is just a realization for me. Sorry. So they took a mortal form. They went down, they commingled with women, and they bore children with all of this esoteric knowledge just flung all over the place. They had their wives bear them children. And these children turned out to be giants. Just giants. Typically, throughout history, giants have been known to be 10 feet or taller. Ouch. Anyhow, so these giants... Well, actually, let's step back for a second. So, as they were commingling with women, of course, they also began to eat everything. Birds, grains, fruit, fish. Did I say birds? Animals. They just started to eat everything. And the giants that they were producing, known as Nephilim, weren't much better. The fallen angels just started killing people, destroying things. The giants started destroying all sorts of, just all creation. They were intelligent. They had thoughts. They could think, feel. And then the fallen angels, they take all different kinds of animals, 200 of each kind of animal, probably as a symbol of defiance, right? And they use these human women and they breed human beings and animals together, creating all sorts of monstrosities, satyrs, minotaurs, things of old Greek legend that probably survived after the end of this story, and like I might have said, but probably didn't. The old Greek mythological stories, and this actually have a lot of things tied in together, and the creatures and monstrosities that they were creating in this story, had they survived at the end of this book, would have made it to Greek legends. I mean, giants were known as people of great renown, warriors of great renown. So obviously giants, and even Native Americans' history has shown that giants had survived the end of this story. But evidently, perhaps, in the old Greek stories of mermaids and minotaurs, all different kinds of beasts, and even Egyptian gods and goddesses, they created bird people, they created dog people, they created all different kinds, just a whole assortment of different creatures. And during this process, probably required a lot of magic or ritualistic practices for women to even conceive these kinds of children. But that would explain a lot of these creatures in old lore and legends that were created. It's just created by fallen angels. And also the origins of witchcraft. In Luciferian tradition, it's known as elf, fairy, or witch blood, which is a specific magical prowess that are typically possessed by witches and wizards. So it's in the blood, it's in the DNA, which is also why certain family lines wouldn't, royalty lines, of course I said this in one of my Claire videos, wouldn't commingle with people who did not have the blood, who could not have visions or could be prophets. Seers could hear spirits and get prophecies from the future, had telekinetic abilities, could talk telepathically. They didn't want the blood to be thinned, therein destroying the capabilities of the family. And of course, they stayed in the family for power, which is just how it is. But yeah, let's get back to the story, huh? So they're having these giants. These giants just start killing everything. These fallen angels start killing everything, breeding women with animals, creating monstrosities that are also killing everything. So everything's just running amok. All different kinds of perversions and violence, you name it, was happening at this time. The book states that this time period was just full of all different kinds of monstrosities and sin. And to add on to that, then, the monsters were also perverting everything that they could as well. I mean, they were very uneducated. I mean, they were beast humans. So they were run by their base instinct, which is to eat and propagate. So that didn't help anything. And then the giants started to have crazy dreams, right? But before these dreams, the giants, it was clear that the giants were trying to get the good angels to come down from heaven and have fun. And I believe also that this is the reason why angels don't take mortal form anymore. The giants wanted the good angels to fall from heaven and join them in their destruction, carnage, and strange propagation. And they were also worried that if they didn't join them, that everything they were doing, all the fun that they were having, was going to come to an end. And then, of course, the giants started to have dreams. The first dream one of the giants was having was of a tablet being dipped in water. And when the tablet came above water, you could see 3 names. They didn't know what the names were. Other giants were having dreams of 200 tree stumps being knocked over and gardens being set ablaze. And then, I mean, they were just having, like, and there is another giant that was having a dream about the spirits of all the deceased were coming to this giant in his dream and like complaining and yelling about all the things that were going on at the time period. And, you know, the giants were worried. So one of the giants, named Gilgamesh, spoke up and he said, I am a great warrior, or I am a warrior of, I don't know. He said, I'm the best. That's what he said. He said, I am the best warrior. I've killed many humans and many giants. I've killed a lot. And I know how to fight. But I cannot fight the will of heaven. I can't it's pointless to fight against heaven. And the other giants were like, let's get Enoch. He's a prophet. He can interpret our dreams. So the story says specifically that one giant jumped and leapt. Now, mind you, Enoch is probably around Egypt. So a giant flew through the air using his hands as bird wings and landed next to Enoch. And started to tell him about everything that was happening. Enoch was like, yo, you guys messed up. Here's what your dreams mean. He said, the tree trunks falling was a sign of fallen angels, and the garden going ablaze was a sign of impending doom. The spirit dream was pretty straightforward and obvious. And the last dream was with a tablet being submerged in water, and it was being raised out of water, and there was 3 names on the tablet, and the names were Noah and his sons. So we all know what happens next. I believe from my days in Catholic school, Noah took 2 of every animal. Well, first he created a boat. He was like, yo, visions, boat, now, let's do it. And his sons were like, okay. And they built a boat, took 2 of every animal, put it on Noah's Ark. The flood came, wiped out all the monstrosities, supposedly, of a planet. And there is geological evidence, so evidence in the dirt and sand and earth of the planet that there was a great flood long time ago. And running back again to the Greek mythological, even some Roman stories. Obviously, some of these creatures survived, and just as a reference, I'm going to look at my notes here and give you just some Native American history, right? So there's one in the Choctaw stories told of a race of giants in Tennessee with whom they fought over the land. Comanches, 1857. I quote, race of white men 10 foot tall and far more rich and powerful than any other white and rich men that are typically seen. And they existed from rising to setting sun. So if you can imagine, like, in the West, just one part of the continent to the other, just giants. Civilization. Now, I'm uncertain if their civilization was sophisticated enough to be past Native American tribes like the teepees and more colonial, as in building houses, but a lot of these giants even had mining knowledge. So it's fair to assume that before the destruction of their race, that some secrets from the fallen angels might have survived. But there's no way to know, because they didn't like short people. Well, that's probably not true. I'm sure there are some out there that commingled, but no, not commingled. I mean, like, coexisted. But from what I can tell, like Manta, I quote, their limbs were in proportion to deformed size of their bodies. Their eyes were as big as plates. And it was also talking about how they were unable to look at the length of their hair and their faces. And this quote comes from a journal entry from Leon, where these giants were floating in from the sea on these giant rafts that they had created, And just looking at them made him like uneasy. Like eyes as big as plates, disproportionate body sizes. Which also brings me to think, like, were they inbreeding, which causes deformed limbs, unintelligence? There are a lot of giant tribes in history, and I'm not sure which Native American tribe, but that were unintelligent. There's one where it was just a cannibalistic tribe. They didn't care. They just ate everything. Humans, animals. They did not seem to have a cohesive language or form of intelligence besides their basic need to eat things. Okay, so let's see. And that was, their eyes were as big as plates, end quote. Leon wrote that the sexual habits of giants were revolting, and that was 1553. Navajo legend has it there was a regal, quote, regal race of white giants endowed with mining technology who dominated the West, enslaved lesser tribes, and had strongholds all over the place. They were either extinguished or they went back to heaven, end quote. So, obviously the giants survived, which means other beasts must have survived. So who knows what the fallen angels, excuse me, had created. There's no way to gauge the animalistic surprises and atrocities that they may have created in the process, just using their basic need for defiance and freedom. It's pretty crazy, I think. And I think that's all I have for this video. Yeah. And of course, stay educated. Do research yourself. If you don't believe what I'm saying, just look it up. You'll find the same information. Sometimes it's just easier for people to watch and hear things than it is to read. So, there you go, man. Lady. Non-gender specific human. So there's the information. And stay healthy. Stay beautiful. Have a great night.